here today, right? So our top teams over here on NA, man, they constantly find themselves in these finals types of lobbies, and it's just super cool to see that consistency.
Dang, that's kind of sick. I like that. I like when we hit people with stats. You know, I'm a big fan of stats. Why don't we talk about some of the players already qualified to EWC, right? We've already had two qualifiers rather. We already have a ton of names that are already gone through, and we have some major names that we'll be even seeing compete here today. Kelly, I mean, talk to us a little bit of that. Maybe give us like a little recap.
Well, let's go back to qualifier number 2, where we saw Muzz and Sphinx and Josh and Iamzo get their tickets to LAN. However, they didn't do that by getting first or second place. No, the theme, the story for the Reload Elite series has been kind of the rivalry between Cold and Rapid and Peterbot and Poyo. And we all know Peterbot and Poyo, the dominating duo, going into the Reload Elite series and getting that second place in the first one was a little bit shocking. But I think what's even more shocking for me, Vivid, is how Cold and Rapid and Peterbot and Poyo have been kind of alternating first and second place and doing it with such a close margin as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think today is going to be cool because it's going to be that tiebreaker, right? If one of these teams can go ahead and win it, then they're going to have 2 wins versus the other one. You know what I mean? Like, so it'll be kind of cool to see how today actually goes if one of these 2 teams can actually go ahead and secure that first or second place again, which of course would be very, very cool to see. But we're kind of looking towards these 2 teams to kind of be the 2 powerhouses that are going to be dominating the lobby. When you kind of and take a look at the stats from those heats, I mean, Cold and Rapid, they went in and picked up second. Peterbot and Poyo made things a little bit close, picking up that last place spot, 5th place right there. But Kelly, I think one of the biggest differences we can see right there in those rankings across those heats, a lot of those points is of course going to come from those eliminations.
Whew, you say making it a little bit close. They were 8 points away from not even getting into the top 5, but to see where a lot of our points come from for our duos, Rapid coming out strong with 40 eliminations out of our heats. And you know, when a lot of people look to the duo of Cold and Rapid, I think if you looked before major number 1, everyone would look to Cold as the star player. But time and time again, Rapid has shown why he is teamed up with Cold and why they have been such a dominant force. And when you talk about dominant forces, we also have to look at the Reload Elite series as a whole, because Cold and Rapid have been on a different level. And when we compare them to people like Peterbot and Poyo, who may have had a relatively lackluster performance during heats as well as during Major 1, we now have to kind of shift focus into this rivalry of, is this even a rivalry anymore? Or is this just now the Cold and Rapid show?
Absolutely. I did want to go ahead and point out, right, we took a look at the top 6 individual eliminations there, and Cold and Rapid were the only 2 from the same duo that found themselves up there, right? Obviously, if you're going to go ahead and pick up 72 eliminations, that's going to be sort of that pattern that you see. But switching focus over to Peterbot and Poyo, you know, you do kind of talk about how, you know, Major 1 potentially a little bit upsetting for them in terms of performance. That being said, Reload still seems to be their game mode that they are incredibly good at. Obviously, this is going to be a team that you do not want in the lobby because they are one to be feared, and obviously they're good at those eliminations, but the tech as well. Check this out from Peterbot. Uses the launch pad, has this little trick where he can actually cancel the effect of that launch pad and launch up on the height using the mantle ability. So these guys are just so good at obviously getting eliminations. That's kind of what they're known for, but also little secrets like that, man, you really got to pay attention to this duo because they'll always have something up their sleeve. So look for them making one of those plays for the high gun that's a little bit uncharacteristic that I don't think we've seen before.
Okay, you guys got me hyped. Now, obviously, there's a couple more things to talk about before we get going, but first, want to go hang out with your casters. MDF is sick, so please send him all your well wishes. But subbing in, we've got the best taco paired up with Jacob PR. Say what's up, friends.
What's going on, everybody out there? Excited to be here in Taco, and a team that honestly I'm surprised to see not in the pre-show yet is Acorn and Bolts. They missed out on qualifier 1 by 1 point, one singular point, and then they went into qualifier 2 and got 16th. We got a whole new map and a whole new feeling for them, and I just want to see how they're going to perform today.
Yeah, it's interesting that they're willing to hedge their bets by potentially contesting Elite Armory. I think the one thing to allude to here, though, is that while Muzz and Sphinx kind of have the world as their oyster because they don't have to worry. They're already qualified. They've already got their land position, but Acorn and Bolt, on the other hand, they don't. However, I do anticipate Elite Armory to be a little bit more of a split drop between these two duos, but hey, you never know. Maybe Muzz and Sphinx are feeling some type of way. Maybe they don't want to see the big Abdullah contesting or dealing with them at land by any means, but Acorn and Bolts, they're certainly going to be a pretty difficult duo for all of our teams to try and contend with, and they're not the only ones trying to lock in for that land spot.
Yeah, especially with 4 of them already taken. We've already seen that affect the leaderboarding qualifier too. It rolled down to 3rd and 4th place. Now we can possibly see 5th, 6th place make it to the Esports World Cup Finals. Who knows? Because there's still so much action that Zeke, Kelly, and Vivid to break down.
Dude, Jacob PR is so freaking cool, man. He always just gets me hyped up. He can say anything. I'm just like, dude, I'm in, Jacob. Okay, so as I promised, we were going to talk about more things. Let's kick things off with that lobby list. Let's get a kind of more or a complete picture of what we're going to be seeing, who we're going to be seeing, as some of our casters already kind of talked about. Why don't we start with Reet and Cooper? Okay, we got King Peace coming back over with Cooper. So as we kind of talk about this, I want to remind viewers at home, we are trying to make it to the top 2 spots to qualify on through to EWC finals. That can change, but for right now, let's just focus in on this. Reet Cooper, do we think they have what it takes to hit one of those 2 top spots?
Ooh, I mean, listen, let's build the story so far, okay? They don't call for Reload Elite Series 1. Reload Elite Series 2, Reet's playing with Venno, he gets 10th place. Cooper's playing with Curly, he gets 12th place. They team up because of Major 1, they played together. Now they're playing in Reload Elite Series 3, and they get into heats, and Zeke, it is looking rough. It is looking bad. 3 games to start things off, and they are in last place in their heats. But it's King Peace, it's Cooper. They put the crowns on their head and they say that the kingdom is yet to fall because they get not just 1, not just 2, but 3 back-to-back victory royales. And my goodness, I feel like I'm giving a sermon right now, Viv, because I am feeling the inspiration. I feel like this is their Reload Elite Series to win.
Yeah, I mean, after your first 3 games, right? Last place, obviously not all performance based there to pick up those first 3 games, but to bounce back, that's what I love to see. Taking it to the house, right? Getting 3rd place with just 5 games when everybody else, gets to play 8, and you still go ahead and you clutch up the qual to the finals here today. This duo has to be feeling good, has to be feeling that little bit of a momentum. And, I love the fact that you go ahead and mention, yeah, this is going to be a new duo kind of forming, approaching the Reload specific, game mode here. I'm excited to see if they go ahead and pull it off. They've done it once yesterday, right? Or not yesterday, a couple days ago, where they had to clutch it up. They got to clutch up today and pick up one of those qual spots.
Oh, that's crazy. You talk about a newly formed duo. Why don't we talk about another newly formed duo? It's Liam and Jace. So, Kelly, talk to me about this, because it's kind of a similar situation, right? This guy's formed for this, but they've kind of been near each other, sort of?
I mean, well, we've seen Jace before in the Reload Elite Series. He played with Aloe in the first qualifier, getting 17th place, and then had actually a pretty good performance with Jargu in Reload Elite Series 2, getting 6th place, so close to actually qualifying for the land spots. But now teaming up with Liam, and let me just say, out of heats, they have had one of the best performances that I have ever seen so far, and gives me a lot of hope for what we're going to be seeing here today. And maybe if they don't qualify, if they don't get those 2 spots, Vivid, I can expect to see them perform really well in the final Reload Elite.
Yeah, they got to be feeling good, right? Picking up 1st place in heat number 4. And, when we kind of saw that the Reload Elite Series would be a thing, I feel like everybody kind of got excited because it gave an opportunity for us to kind of check out some newer players. And that is exactly what we are getting to see here with Liam and Jace. If you take a look at their FNCS history, I mean, Jace has never made an FNCS Grand Finals, and Liam has only ever made 4. So newer to the scene of these types of finals, but hey, they're looking good coming into it.
Okay, I want to switch gears a little bit. I want to talk about a duo that is a Vivid stand. Okay, let's bring up that live list. It's Shadow, it's Virgo. We know Vivid is a big fan of the duo. So again, kind of similar question, Viv. With only the top 2 making it through to the EWC finals, do they have what it takes?
I think absolutely. Again, this is going to be one of those teams that has the momentum coming into the finals today, right? Picking up 1st place in their heat respectively. And if you guys have a very good memory, if you remember those individual eliminations that we kind of looked at where Rapid was up top, yeah, he had 40. Virgo was also on that top 6 list, right? He picked up 34 eliminations over the course of those heats, and Shadow was not too far behind him with 22. This duo is very, very good in terms of picking up those eliminations, which is actually one of the highlights throughout their FNCS performances. But I mean, hey, duo, very, very good. Would not be surprised to see them being one of the 2 duos to go ahead and qual to that EWC land.
I mean, speaking of those stats as well, if we look actually to Virgo, he had the most damage out of the heats. And but what's a little bit surprising to me is what happened between Reload Elite Series 1 and Reload Elite Series 2. They get 6th place out of the first qualifier, which is a pretty good performance, especially with some of the big names that we had. And then they ended up splitting in the qualifier 2, obviously reforming for the third one, which makes me curious as to what caused their split, what allowed them to reform, and have they fixed the communication issues, the synergy issues that caused them to break up before.
Interesting stuff. Interesting. That's a good question, Kelly. Maybe they're just comfortable. They're like, hey, this guy, really good. Let's just go back to what I know, what we know can slay, right? Vivid believes in us. We should move forward with that. One last duo to talk about. It's Clix and it's Higgs. The People's Champion once again. You know, we're never going to get tired of seeing Clix and Higgs duo. But again, you know, this is going to be a really tough spot to try and fight through. So many big names in the lobby. And again, it's only the top 2 that will move on through. So with a new meta, a new loot pool, a new map, like where do we feel like these guys are at? Are they ready to tackle one of those top 2 spots?
I feel like whatever happened between Clix and Higgs after Major 1, I feel anytime I talk about this duo, I always talk about how they are very mentally affected during the game. They can, you know, snowball emotionally. And I think right now they have snapped in the right way where their emotions are less tied to how their performance is. And that's kind of been reflective a little bit in the gameplay that we've seen them in the qualifiers and heats. And honestly, they are contested at Hostile Hold, which gives me a little bit concerned, but they were contested originally by Acorn and Bolts, and they got kicked out of that POI during heats. Now they are contested by Craze and Kingling, so that is a big question mark for me, Vivid, but I do think that there is a lot of potential between this duo.
Yeah, I think the spotlight constantly being on this duo, right? Everybody's setting their expectations so high for them because everybody in the community feels like this duo, these 2 individuals, have the highest potential pretty much out of anybody. Can they reach it here today in the Reload Elite Series? Go ahead and clutch up that qualification. Would not be surprised.
I believe in you, Clix and Higgs. I believe it's, look, I said it first. Don't worry, I said it first. I believe first. All right, guys, it is that time. 8 games today, and we need to end the day in the top 2 if we want to qualify to the EWC finals. With that being said, game number 1 is ready. So, casters, over to you.
I like the way Kelly kind of said it to start the day. This is like the 3rd quarter of things, the 3rd qualifier. There's 4 spots left overall, but only 2 spots will be granted today. And we've already got some of our heavy hitters fired up and ready to go.
Look, Jacob, I'm getting a little nervous. I'm ready for NA to show me something, though, because that's been the huge ordeal, is who's going to be those next 2 duos that are confirming their position towards the EWC LAN. It starts right here, right now, with Game 1.
Coming into this game, half of the lobby is contested. 10 teams really fighting for their lives in game 1 right out of the gates, and 10 teams kind of having a slow pace. They get to farm up, they get to kind of prepare for what is ahead of them. King and Craze, Clix and Higgs, that was one of the fights they were talking about over towards Hostile Holds. And it's not going to be a straight fight right out of the gate, though. It looks like both teams kind of taking their respective edges of this POI and trying to get as much of their loadout built up before they take any engagements.
Rapid, though, perhaps a victim of this first lobby's buzz path, already saw that elimination feed highlighted with his name, so perhaps there could be some trouble brewing. Teams maybe looking to infiltrate other duos' positions based on whether or not they feel confident in the ability to kind of just play clean up factor. And Jacob, I know one huge ordeal that is definitely going to be the center of attention here in NA, because it very much was so in EU, but how are these duos going to fare with that cube rifle effect?
Yeah, especially in the end game where everybody's kind of congested, especially if we get these mountains in play going from top to bottom, you're really going to be tested. Not only like your actual Fortnite skill, but something that our analyst pointed out as well, your mental composure, being able to bounce back when you're being bombarded, not just from one team, Taco, but from 2 teams, 3 teams. So really gonna see how these players handle 8 games, a long day ahead of them. And so a lot of that really does come down to the mental game. We should check out Muzz and Sphinx. We saw Clix and Higgs, King and Craze kind of split their dropout. You hinted at this one, Muzz and Sphinx kind of splitting the drop as well. I think game number 1, since it's relatively early, there's no points really scored off, you know, you kind of want to feel each other out. As the day goes on, I mean, you could probably see a little similarities in EU. They get ramped up in aggression.
But that might cause even more tension if you're Acorn and Bolts, right? Because you spend the first 3-4 lobbies not really having to factor in this initial off spawn, and then it switches 180 out of nowhere. Pete, on the other hand, lurk opportunity, just so patient. The discipline with the whiff. That's a rare miss out of Peterbot, and Veer now heads up position, trying to see if he can turn this around. But Pete, you're playing with your pride on the line here, big guy, and he's gonna be forced to fall back. Veer's actually got him on the ropes here, and Peterbot be forced to expend those couple of pizza slices. Still has the opportunity to maybe close this one out, but Pollo not close enough to actually try and play backup here. And Veer, he's done enough. He's actually held his own.
Yeah, and it looks like help is already on the way. Veer's teammate Noxie beating Pollo to the punch, and the first knock is there. It all starts with an uncharacteristic like miss, and then Veer just takes full advantage. That first shot really put Peterbot on the back foot, and then Noxie able to get there very, very quickly. I'm not gonna say that the Heats was foreshadowing anything, because Peterbot and Pollo, a team that you'd expect to see #1 on the leaderboard, maybe a 100-point gap. Taco, when I tell you they barely made it in by 8 points, 8 points, that's 2 eliminations. This is crazy.
Oh, I think we were all adamantly watching those Aussie Infacts parties, but hey, the scene has been set. Pete and Pollo, they'll have their work cut out for them in this first lobby at least, but Virgo, Shadow, they've got Craze in their sights. Whether or not he's going to be able to escape, it's another conversation entirely, and it looks as though Shadow will be able to confirm that elimination. So 3 points added to the count. Now Kingling just trying to make sure he can scurry away. Doesn't want to fall a little too early here. Needs to make sure that Craze has a chance to touch down.
Yeah, just like, you know, the situation that Jace is in here, you do want to create some distance between your opponents, because in reload, I'm sure everybody knows, but in case you don't, when your teammate does reboot back into the game, it's essentially a beacon right over your head. They know exactly what direction you're in. So Jace, even though he is going to get a chance to get Liam back into the game, his general direction is going to be given up here. It's just a matter if Liam is going to be able to survive, because we know and seen it in the past, teams do like to try to chase after these reboot opportunities, but for now it does look like Liam's feet is going to be able to touch ground.
Hey, why not? When eliminations are worth 3 points apiece and they don't have to worry about an elimination cap, the more the merrier after all. Ozone Golden, their lurk also not gonna net anything just yet. NAC, we can tell this is the first lobby. Everybody just trying to get warmed up here, it appears. But
How
Ozone
the
Golden
fuck he made
now
that?
looking to fall back. And the teleporters will help play a part here, Jacob, but it seems like everybody's, you know, method of surprise tactics just not netting anything.
Yeah, and I think one of the biggest difference between, you know, Slurp Rush and Elite Strongholds is there is more POIs, and even though there is more loot on Elite Strongholds, there's more teams taking those split drops. There's more team taking a lot of the scavenged loot, so you're seeing players not want to go down early. You're seeing them jump into the storm, put themselves in a weird spot just to try to survive, so that way they don't have to get rebooted, and hope and pray that some scraps were left behind. You see Sonetto, Wagers, they already have their 1 elimination in the books. And just trying to push forward. You can see they're missing some materials here in their loadout. Wood, brick, metal, and I think they're in the perfect position to recuperate those lost materials.
But still, plenty of action. It's probably going to start building up. The tension of the lobby, obviously, going to take a little bit to unfold, but right here, right now, Ritual and Agers might be having to deal with the likes of Javi and Aminish. Either side really willing to commit just yet, and if I'm Javi and Aminish, I'm trying to head the opposite direction right now. Agers rocking that cube rifle, sending some of those warning shots their way. Looks like all they wanted was a free rotate and not having to worry about the tags.
Yeah, kind of prevent them from peeking out while they use the shockwave with that Flowberry Fizz, the combination farther, much quicker. And they see that it's moving out of Chiseled over the top of that mountain. That's one of the POIs where even though it's center drop, you kind of want a hot drop. I personally don't like going there, Taco. Once I go in, the only way for me to find my way out is getting rebooted by my teammate. So I do like that decision, that natural bowl. You don't want teams to kind of hold you on that edge. Clicks and Higgs, you see them rotating through, and instead of taking any fights, they have 0 eliminations here. You see they're focusing on rotations, getting in towards the zone, so that way they don't have to take any unnecessary risks.
And Clicks and Higgs, they're just going to focus on their own strengths. I think that they tend to perform best whenever they just feel... I think momentum players is probably the best way to really put it. We even saw yesterday in their Div Cup Finals performance, you know, those signs of life that really started kicking in towards those later lobbies. And here, knowing that there's still 7 more to go after this first one, teams will have more than enough opportunity to get their pop-off opportunities.
Yeah, you see Josh Niamzo taking a very, very slow approach to this game. I know we mentioned Muzz and Sphinx, but Josh Niamzo as well. Nothing to really lose out on today other than bragging rights over winning the tournament. They got their spot secured. So you see them rotating it slow to the south side of the zone. You saw Yamzo a moment ago had what looked like infinity gold. No, it's not infinite. It's just when you reach over 8,000 gold, it kind of changes the symbol. So you know they're just waiting for the zone to pull. They know they're going to recuperate that with either patch-ups or med kits because you saw he has them in the inventory. And again, it's just one of those ways to not take unnecessary risks. Rapid and Cold, they got that one elimination early, and Rapid, kind of one of those players, especially when it comes to reload. He likes to rotate and take position early when he can.
An eye on Ozone and Golden here, though. Some tags, but largely just playing for the vending machine, trying to make sure they get the appropriate amount of heals. And yeah, even drawing things back, though, Jacob, I think for so many of these duos that are kind of trying to push their way in from the outer fringe of the storm, the heals that are available, you don't want to burn too many of them on those later rotates because it's not very easy to recuperate while heals. You're really depending on Siphon after the fact.
Yeah, especially when you add in, like, even though reboots haven't been disabled just yet, if you go down, you could still get back into the game. I think that's exactly what you're alluding to in a sense. What are you going to use to get back into the game? And that's why you see teams, even right here towards the bottom in the ravine, Cooper and Reed, they're just full kind of building a path. They don't want to take any unnecessary tags. They don't want to have to dig into their resources early here before the reboots even turn off. And so if you're one of those teams that are going through it right now at this stage in the game, you're going to have a rough road trying to get back into it. You might need to force your hand at some eliminations. Jojo and Iacti, though, not necessarily having to do just that, rotating quickly towards this edge of the mountain. And where they're positioned now, they literally on the edge of a cliff. They can shockwave off if it pulls in that direction, or they can easily rotate back towards that mountain if it pulls back.
Relatively impressive performance, too, with their Heat finalizing things in that 5th place position. Doesn't matter how you make it. The point is that you are in and having equal opportunity to try and stamp your spot on that battle bus for the EWC LAN. Cam starting to make his way forward. And the 2-tick might lend a little bit of a, you know, indication towards storm sickness later on, but right now, Cam doesn't seem too pressed about it. Will be forced to dive a little bit earlier on, though. He's gonna have to resort to the medkits here.
Yeah, the blessing for him, though, is even though you kind of think about that in the back of your mind, how much damage have I taken? Is Storm Sickness going to play a role later on in this game? For now, you're just taking it one step at a time. He sees the whole southern side of that zone uninhabited. He quickly rotates in, boxes up, and starts to heal. He might have to dig in, maybe use 2 of those med kits, depending on what he's going to really achieve here, since how deep he is in the zone. He still has to wait for it to open up, but you see his teammates slowly but surely trying to get by his side. Muzz and Sphinx, they're already inside the center of the zone, but you see, and again, they're another one of those teams. They see it opening up on the other side, and they're just trying to better their position while they can.
Must be so nice, though, to just have the luxury of knowing you are already qualified for LAN. So it's primarily just the prize pool that Muzz and Sphinx are hoping to get the lion's share of. But with these loadouts, Jacob, they're definitely looking pretty set. It's all about just making sure that you don't go down as soon as that 7th zone ticks in. Remember, that is when the reboots will be disabled, so now is a possible opportunity maybe for Cold and Rapid, just applying even more pressure towards Crazy and Kingling with that cube rifle, and really just waiting to see whether or not they want to extend and try and make a play for height later on.
Yeah, almost essentially forcing out a shockwave for them, one less resource for them to take into the end game, but for Rapid and Cold, one less resource to go against here. You're seeing where the lobby it is, most of them stacked up on the edge of Yamzo and Josh, and you're seeing them very, very quick to rotate, so you're seeing that it is going to go to the western side of the zone. So a max pull here for Peterbot and Poyo. No worries too much just yet, though. They do have the splashes, they do have the fizz, and they do have the shockwave, so they can cover so much distance in the blink of an eye.
Whew. Check out Muzz, though. Might just start letting that pulse rifle rip here, but teams going to be persuaded to look elsewhere. after those initial couple of shots out of Muzz and Spinks, and they're just continuing to extend their presence. Good tarp out currently. Cam and Chimp, if they're not careful, might actually find themselves on the receiving end of more of that pressure. But for right now, it's all about Cooper Reet. They want to make sure that they stay just a little bit elevated from that ultimate low. They're not fully committed towards stretching things out towards height, but they also don't want to dip towards that low ground just yet either.
Yeah, they could probably sense where the zone is actually going, the POI, where it dips underneath. If this continues to pull towards the northwest, and then it pulls back towards the east, hopefully these players buckle up. It's going to be a roller coaster of emotions trying to survive that, as Quicks and Higgs trying to put pressure on the other side of the map. That's cold and rapid, whether they know it or not. That's a big team. You'd like to get out of the lobby, but a quick shockwave is going to reposition Cold and a rapid out of position. And you can see they're staying away from that low ground. This is a team that typically does hunt for those eliminations in the mid to low ground, which is how they've been able to not only win, but even get second place in our through 2 qualifiers.
One thing's for sure, Cold and Rapid, they're probably going to have to hunt for a refresh soon enough. That Flowberry Fizz is not going to be enough to really carry things over for Cold as the game continues to move on. Cooper, Reet, maybe gonna start finding themselves in a little bit of that zone congestion. Still managing to avoid the bulk of it. Peterbot looking upwards. You can tell one thing's on his mind, and that's trying to take out the team on height, or at least prevent them from sending shots his way. Instead, Pete just absorbing damage here. Forced to use even more of that Flowberry Fizz to recuperate. Muzz and Spinks also still trying to apply steady pressure wherever possible.
Yeah, and I like this kind of hidden effect with the exotic, little bit of low gravity here. He's going to get that inside of the box with the shockwave, but Clicks and Higgs, this is the moment now. 8th zone, they're going to go and try to play for that high ground. I'm not sure if they saw that team above that's using the launch pads to try to escape the chaos down below, but eventually that will come into play. It's Cold and Rapid, shockwave towards the front side of the zone. Agers was lost throughout the mix. I'm not sure if that elimination was fully cleaned up just yet, but it's a chance for Ritual to be a hero.
The lobby's already starting to fold inside of itself as Ritual believe he should have some success here with this revive. Nobody's able to scout them out just yet. Slapper and Pizza are going to be dropped, so Ager should be back to full HP in no time, but material count still looking a little bit too thin for these two, and Reed, he's lost Cooper, won't have the same opportunity to actually play for the revive. It's all about the solo placement points from here on out.
Yeah, 20 teams still up into the game. Saying it loosely, some players left as solos. Placement points don't even start to come in until top 15, where half of them are in the top 6, so still a long road to go. For now, Clicks and Higgs happy with what they have in their hands. They just have the high ground looking down, shockwaving towards the front, but they need to be careful. It's not a bird, it's not a plane, it's Peterbot and Koyo gliding through the sky. Clicks and Higgs stealing a page out of their playbook, trying to go ahead and leave all the chaos down below, but I think Peterbot saw him on his way up. This is a perfect chance for him to look up and try to get some tags.
Pete, a little bit more distracted, just trying to sort out the affairs on these lower layers. Now looking up, recognizing the fact that Clicks and Higgs are still overhead, so high ground not completely free just yet. He needs a little bit more pressure application, and that's going to force the first nosedive out of Clicks and Higgs. Reet, though, still managing to work his way through. Silverleg helping him out just a little bit here, managing to stay lurking. And the body loot, that is a huge saving grace right now, finding that legendary slurp juice and be able to buy himself some more time.
Literally could be the difference going down now at 16 points, so no placement points, and maybe getting something to show for it from this game. Cold and Rapid. Cold just trying to go ahead and shoot that cube rifle on out, create some distance. Rapid's there on the other side, more eliminations down below, but Cold's not able to clean up anything just yet. Reed's still by himself. He does have the gold pass, one pump around any one of these corners, but he misses that opportunity there. And this is where you got to be careful. If you're a solo trying to hunt for an elimination, you got cube rifles, you got everybody bouncing around, and those are the opportunities right there that Virgo's looking for to get a quick elimination to stay in the game.
Definitely a nice 180 there by Virgo, but now it's up to Clicks and Higgs. Crouch position, but still trying to make sure they maintain. Ritual from the backside of the zone. He'll be able to find one onto Cold. Can't manage to connect the next into Rapid. He's already moving forward, but the siphon will kick in here. Ritual able to buy himself some time in that backside of the zone is now Pete Poyo. One more time, still on the high ground, and everyone else in the lobby fully aware of it now. Must sent flying off of that cube rifle detonation, and he won't be able to stay standing any longer. EWC and JoJo just hoping that they avoid that focal damage out of Pete and Poyo, but how much longer can you really escape their visuals? Yamzo and Josh, they'll be next on the chopping block.
Why is
They're
that
just
done
shooting
Indomited
basically thunderbolts
Fortnite?
down like they're Zeus in a cloud. Yamzo and Josh, I'm not sure how they've been able to survive and be as healthy as they have so far, but now they run into Ritual. There goes a quick elimination. Josh is there, Virgo as well, but that one gets stolen away, but at least it's one less team in their path.
You know
Our
who
final
wins?
3
Hit
teams
the butt.
remaining. It almost
That
looks
thing.
like Aoxy, Jojo down below going head-to-head against Josh and Yamzo, while Peterbot and Poyo just wait to see who wins so they can try to clean this one up. One more elimination. That's their 9th one overall down below. Josh and Yamzo have been terrorizing the low ground.
Yeah, but they don't have much HP to work with after the fact. Pete's gonna be the first to drop between himself and Poyo, going right back up one more time. Yamzo and Josh, they are running on fumes here as Poyo, Pete, one more time, just waiting for the final drop down. Yamzo has fallen. Where's Josh in the aftermath as Poyo, Peter, scattering around, trying to see exactly where this solo has sent himself, and he's just dancing around these builds, doing the best he can to try and escape their visuals, but Poyo, Pete, they're looking to close in. Josh gonna manage to bring down one, but he can't get the other, and that's going to be the ultimate difference maker here. A really nice confirmation there after Pete and Poyo
maybe do
to bring home
something,
game one.
post a weapon,
Almost gave
nope
me a
it,
huge scare right there when I
fucking
saw Peterbot go
take it
down.
out.
Josh still alive. Valiant effort for them, but a much better effort from Peterbot and Poyo. I said they barely made it in by 8 points in 5th place on consistency. Now they start the day off with a win, Zeke.
Jacob, I was right there with you. I thought the moment Peterbot went down, I was like, hold on. Hold on. Wait a minute. But it's fine. It's fine. Poyo's here. Poyo's here. Of course. I always have to believe and know Poyo's going to have not only Pete's back, our backs, because he's a legend. Congratulations to Peterbot Poyo. Game number 1. Guys, it's happening. It's happening.
At least, and they're doing it in game number 1, Zeke. Usually they wait a few games, let everyone sweat a little bit, and then that's when they start to turn things up, show everyone, hey, we got the high ground, we have no problem. But the high ground and the cube, that is a problem, Vivid. Having that on the high ground, being able to steal it around zone 9, taking it away from Clicks and Higgs, that is just not what you want to see in game number 1 if you're the other 19 teams in the lobby.
Yeah, absolutely. We saw their approach to go ahead and take the high ground, the classic that not only they are doing, but a lot of our other teams using that launch pad to go ahead and launch up, right? And you're just so high in the sky that you can go ahead and make a play for the high ground. That being supported by that cube rifle makes finishing the game just all that much easier. You can just destroy all the builds of all of the duos that are down below you so easily with that thing. The pressure is just too much. Peterbot and Poyo, they are good on high ground without the cube rifle. You put that in their hands, man, it's gonna be a cakewalk in the park.
Yeah, we were kind of joking like right before we came on, like, oh, well, the cube rifle has like a reduced spawn rate, right? And they're like, well, we should only see like a handful in the game, right? Of course, Peterbot, Poyo, they have one. Of course they would, because they're Peterbot and Poyo. They do win game number 1.
It's
so
fake.
We'll take a look at the standings.
It's still in the
after
team.
this short break. When we return, we'll kind of see how things played out in game number 1. So we'll see you real soon. Fortnite fam, welcome back to the Reload Elite Series. You know what happens. We're like, oh, here we go. We're going to start another qualifier. Ee-hee-hee, Peter Bon Pollo in here. Ee-hee-hee. And then guess what? They come out, they win game number 1. Of course, Peter Bon Pollo. Yeah, they do what they do. Of course, of course. As we start taking a look at some of the standings to kind of see what else happened in this last game, I got to give a massive shout out to Josh and Iamzo. I mean, take a look at these point thresholds, and if you're seeing those little crowns and you're kind of confused, don't worry. This just means that these duos with the little crowns next to their name already have a qualifying spot to EWC later on. So anyway, coming back to Josh and Iamzo, man, that last 1v2 against Peter Bot and Pollo, I really thought for a moment Josh had it. He drops Peter Bot, and like, dude, Kelly, I don't know, he has like such a crazy sense of like, I'm just gonna move around in like these, like, look at this movement, like,
yeah.
Bro, he's breaking everyone's ankles right now.
No, I mean, you're talking about how you were concerned for a second, and I know that our casters were. I'm fairly certain Peter Bon and Pollo were also probably holding their breath for a second, thinking that this is going to be a confident win. We're on high ground, 2v2 easy. We take down Iamzo. Wait, what are you doing, Josh? What are you? But anyway, it did go to the way of Peter Bon and Pollo, starting things off strong for our third set of finals for the Reload Elite Series. But obviously, Josh and Iamzo have already qualified through. So now, currently looking at our top 4, Aoxy and JoJo Fishing having a pretty good start, and Shadow and Virgo Vivid, your team to look at right there, doing a pretty good job as well.
Yeah, I love the fact that leaderboard goes ahead and shows you kind of what that threshold looks like, takes into account who is already qualified. So running that qualification spot down to 4th place, of course, where Shadow and Virgo currently sit. And listen, you know, we were talking big ups about the duo and how they were going to kind of perform today and how they're so good, they're working together. Well, that one was actually just all Virgo right there, picking up most of those points as a solo, putting them in a spot like that. So a shout out to him for picking up such a good place points to put them in that qualifying range.
I feel like the cube rifle played quite a role in this last lobby, right from Peter Bot Pollo up on the high ground. But guess what? Another duo had it in their hands as well, Cold and Rapid. And we did kind of see some things, you know, it kind of fell apart a little quickly there, but still, this is Cold Rapid. They also, can't forget, already have a spot. Everything's chill. But I think right now, Kelly, as you kind of called out, we're kind of fighting for that, like, all right, which one of us is better between us and Peter Bot Pollo, right? If we come out ahead, we win. If they come out ahead, it's like a 2v1, you know? So I feel like they're really thinking about that, right? Everything they're doing is kind of like, we need to make sure we're getting ahead of them as much as possible.
I think we're thinking about that. I don't think Cold thinks about anything. I don't even think he thinks about Fortnite. I think he just jumps in, shows in front of his computer, and then he's won the game somehow. Didn't win that game, unfortunately. However, it's still Cold and Rapid with game 1 down. Still so many more opportunities, Zeke. I think that we can see them maybe step things up in game number 2.
Okay, thank you, Kelly, for almost breaking me on broadcast. Appreciate that. Game number 2 is ready. We're moving right back into the action. So, casters, what do you?
One thing I couldn't help but notice there, Jacob, Cold and Rapid. I mean, was the Q rifle not enough? The 7 cluster cannon too? Truly just trying to embrace the most evil side of Fortnite, it appears. But obviously, Jacob, every single duo in this lobby just doing what they feel is going to be the best way to propel themselves to the top side of that leaderboard. Because yes, a lamp wall spot is nice, but if you've already got it, what's next up? That's going to be the prize pool.
Yeah, and you got to think, you know, you don't want any of these guys contesting your drop spots. So I go and look at Muzz and Sphinx. So even though they have almost nothing to lose in a game like today or overall situation, you don't want Acorn and Bolts feeling that confident to contest you, even though you might have to deal with all those other regions as well. But these games will continue to fly by because game number 2 is ready. So let's jump into it.
Things were relatively quiet on the southern portion of the map, but slightly different scenario maybe brewing over towards Hostile Hold, Craze, Kingling, Clicks, Higgs. Think a little bit more directly involved with some immediate action here. Big part of the reason why, Jacob, is that obviously either one of these duos would love to just have full control, but the elimination feed is already lighting up, so some players definitely having difficulties making sure that they even touch down after that bus path.
Yeah, you saw Ozone, even though he's contested by Corin Lawrence, he was able to get an elimination at Re in the sky, and then Javi and Aminish, knowing that Cold and Rapid still have to glide down past them, they were able to get a clean elimination. But relatively early, uncontested drops, you know their teammates are going to get rebooted and back in the game in no time at all. You see Muzz and Sphinx, one different side where they're not fighting it, and on the other side, Ishu and G-Money just trying to spray into the box. They get a down onto Liam, and this is back-to-back games where they were able to get that first elimination onto Liam, sending them in almost in a downward spiral.
It's crazy to think that the match just started and they've already got 3 eliminations, though, so it's very obvious that G-Money and Ishu, they're more than willing to get Scrappy outright. Jace maybe trying to bait out this rare chest, hoping that somebody decides to stroll on by, be his best opportunity at making a comeback, but things are going to remain up in the air right now. It doesn't look like Ishu or G-Money have any intentions of heading that way just yet.
Yeah, I can see why, you know, you got to separate yourself from where all the farming goes down at. Put yourself in a tunnel, unless you need loot. I wouldn't want to go down there either. Too many corners, nooks and crannies to hide in. But Reet and Cooper, glad to see again that uncontested drop. That Reet going down off spawn really isn't going to affect their game plan too much at all. You see Cooper's basically kind of loaded up, ready to go, giving Reet that time to kind of do the same. And already that first zone appearing, they're just on the edge of it, going to show, or at least tell them very, very early on, we're going to have to rotate to the north. We're going to have to rotate to the east when it comes to game 2.
Want to see if Cooper is going to be able to do something, though, with that hunting rifle. Always such a fun weapon, although its presence usually only really being utilized in these earlier zones, Jacob, right? Most players are going to opt to drop that item later on as the match develops because it's just not a necessity, and obviously it's so difficult to actually do something with it once we get to the moving zones.
Yeah, you can see again, just Rapid kind of going through it early here. 36 points after that first game, and just take an easy stroll. Even though Rapid's going through a couple of struggles, he knows uncontested means free reboots back into the game. And that allows you to kind of play risky. We've seen it in the first 2 qualifiers. You kind of send one of your players to get eliminations. Craze looking over the backside of that spot, finding G-Money rotating through. But again, Ishu's still alive, lurking around. The only difficult thing here is Ishu is going to get G-Money back in the game, but G-Money's going to get rebooted right above where Ishu's at. So they're going to know he hasn't left this area.
For sure, and poor G-Money, he's just trying to get down. Wants to be as low to the ground as possible, but Kingling and Craze all too happy to give pursuit here. Kingling even defaulting to fall back just to make sure that Ishu isn't actually trying to escape the vicinity. They want to make sure that this duo is fully locked down, and Ishu, he already tried to take his bailout opportunity while his duo was the sacrificial lamb, but whether or not he actually escapes, that's still left to be determined.
Yeah, but at least he's giving themselves a chance as G-Money's going to get back in the game. Just trying to see if any shots pour off in that direction. We know in the mini-map there's at least one team towards that area. Not sure anybody really spotted that one out. So that's even information in its own, or I should say the lack of information is information, because they know that Ishu is no longer on that side of the map since G-Money didn't get rebooted there.
Shadow and Virgo, Vivid kind of touched on it. That first lobby was definitely a very strong display from what Virgo is capable of. 46 points that he managed to collect as a solo. It's not an easy feat by any means, especially not in a reloads format, but now Reet, Cooper want to get a little bit fraggy here. Can they find the first shots? Went out in this exchange. Javi and a Minish. Remember, once upon a time, it used to be Javi and Reet, but currently, Reet and Cooper, they've determined that this juice isn't really worth the squeeze. They're gonna look to fall back here and not keep up that fight.
Yeah, most rightfully so. Even though they do have some big pots, some extra heals, you don't want to dig deep into your bag of tricks. You know what I mean? You can see there's only 2 crash pads in Reet's inventory, so they are lacking just a little bit where they'd hope to bolster it more. And especially since that fight would put them in an easy position to get third-partied. Wise decision for them to disengage. Vera and Noxy taking a different approach to this game. They're rotating away from the zone, hoping to find one of those long launch pads. Maybe they're gonna mix it with the Fizz, with the Cube Rifle. Oh my. Can we see that again? What was that?
We don't need to run it back, man. Like, there's doom and despair. Agers and Ritual with the timing. I mean, we know about the 3-2-1s, Jacob, but this is just wicked work.
I am going to rewatch that again and again and again after this one. But it just goes to show that the cube rifles, you just don't see very many players just kind of walk past the cube rifle anymore, especially since, you know, when it first kind of dropped, people were like myself were even just kind of shooting the cubes out, letting them explode against the boxes, maybe even shooting the box walls to try to sneak it in. But ever since players really figured out that you shoot the cube, causes a bigger explosion, you can kind of cut that explosion short depending on where that player is at, it's created just a huge amount of chaos and destruction that you almost really have no answer from if you get caught off guard, as you saw.
That's just the NA diff right there, buddy, okay? EU, from the get-go, recognized the sort of potency involved with this cube rifle, but more importantly still, it's what players are able to do with it, right? You always want to try and convert not just the eliminations, but those end game placements, and Acorn Bolts certainly in pursuit of a strong game here. Probably number one, not necessarily too heavily in their favor, but the tides can change at any moment, especially when there's 8 games in total.
Yeah, and I'm just watching right now where you got Cam and his duo just kind of poking the bear. And I'm going to call this poking the bear because Yamzo and Josh already have their spot secured in EWC. So if Yamzo and Josh want, they don't like how you played this fight against them, they can try to hunt you down the rest of these games. But Yamzo looking like he's fighting this one by himself, maybe allowing for Josh to get out, get space, get in towards the zone in case the worst happens. And Yamzo does go down, they get a chance to get back in the game. You see there's no extra HP in his inventory. And you even see on the side that Josh, there's no shield. He's even missing some HP here. So already you're getting the sense of game number 2 hasn't been faring well for Josh and Yamzo. And Yamzo is on a clock here. He has about like 30 seconds, 30 HP he could take before he has to try to make a move.
Yamzo trying to see if he can get a lurk opportunity off onto Chimp, but Chimp just a little bit too high up. Instead, Yamzo gonna look to depart from the scene of the crime. Fortunately, with no white heals, it won't be able to outlast it. Some bandages that Josh is gonna happen to stumble upon. And the gloves also gonna take him a good means away, but damage has been done here, Jacob. Losing Yamzo at this stage, it just opens them up for being so focused by the rest of the lobby. They're going to be late on their rotations. They're going to be kind of contending for scraps on their loadouts. Bit of an uphill battle after such a hot start in game 1.
Yeah, we just got to remember this moment just in case we do see them kind of pop off in this end game. You got to think of like little moments like Josh being able to stay alive. And you can see they really only had bandages. Maybe he found a med kit there at the last second, but they're going to have a long road ahead of them. Peterbot Pollo, you see the most damage and eliminations in the last qualifier. That's going to go for Peterbot. Just going to show when he takes it serious, when he's feeling confident, when he's in form, he's an unmovable force and object that you don't want to go against. And then Pollo, I think he's finally getting more and more of his well-deserved spotlight. Because, you know, when they won their global championship, everybody looked at Peterbot. He did this, he did that. And I think now Pollo, especially coming into this season, has so many more solo clutches and big moments that he's getting credit for.
Hey, all roads lead to Pollo after all. In Pete's circumstances. He also had that Eradicator OXR rifle. That is a spooky sight in the hands of Peterbot. You know, Thomas HD on EU is a very feared opponent when it comes to that weapon, and just understanding the fact that it's going to ramp up in body damage for every single consecutive hit. That's a dangerous scene for the rest of this lobby here, Jacob. We'll have to see whether or not it actually pans out in their favor as other teams begin to try and settle in to their positions. Clicks and Higgs, his first partial, willing to tank up a little bit of Storm. They've got the pizza, got Flowberry Fizz too, and those overdrive grenades full stacked and ready. See if they can get the party started.
They're in zone, almost nothing to worry about. Kind of thinking about where is Josh and Yamzo? How have they been doing? Well, they've been doing just enough, Taco, to get back in the game, but you can see they aren't maxed out on materials, empty item slots from Josh. You can see Yamzo has the grappler instead of shockwave, so it goes to show that they're just kind of scrapping their way back into this game. But there's one thing I learned about Fortnite, especially in Reload. All you need is a chance. You give a team an inch, they will threaten to take a mile. And Josh Yamzo is one of those teams, especially if they can continue that momentum from that last game.
Hey, after seeing Josh's movement in those final little matchups against Pete Pollo, he might not need those overdrive grenades. Yeah, that man is wiggly with it, so We'll have to see whether or not they're able to find a refresh, though. Obviously, they would prefer to have clear mobility. There's a duo nearby them, but Acorn, Bolts, another team. Fortunately for them, 2 other duos having already been eliminated. So they'll be able to take a little bit of a pause here and really gauge where the lobby is starting to really pull most of its congestion towards. Reek, Cooper, frontside low. But decent amount of lobby focus coming their way, and Clicks, Higgs also knocking on the door here. Floor overhead, getting a little bit threatened there. Cooper, Reek, they'll just look to reposition. Ager's Ritual also on the move.
Yeah, just taking it one step at a time. And you can see instead of kind of shockwaving over the top, they're just trying to go as much as they can forward on foot before they eventually break out those shockwaves and try to cover as much distance as they can in what they believe to be one hop. And you see the rapid inventory again. You said it. They're just doing everything that they can to win. The cluster cannon in the inventory does have the slurp juice and the crash pads. It's almost a much different look to the game and the meta of reload than we're seeing a lot of players, especially with their loadouts. It's Cold Rapid wasting no time trying to get to the front. They see that layer's congested. Cold wasting no time, dropping down low, reuniting with Rapid. Even with some pressure coming from behind from Shadow and Virgo, they waste no time to defending the throne.
Cold and Rapid still did relatively good job at managing to stay with their shields largely intact here as Eoxy and JoJo looking down, but also checking out what's in front of them. The cube rifle going to open up a little bit more opportunities in terms of rotational abilities, because wherever that cube rifle is being sprayed towards, teams are going to want to head a different direction from it. So that might permit JoJo and Eoxy just long enough to actually navigate the direction that they want most.
I'm just looking at where these last 2 zones have pulled, Taco. We were over the edge of a cliff. If it went north, if it went east, they're going off that mountain. It goes south. It escapes danger. Right now, if it went towards the southwest again, you're going to Chisel Cubes into that dip, but we are escaping it yet again, trying to keep it relatively close to level ground. I think Clicks and Higgs just trying to take that approach, using the mountain, that natural terrain as a line of sight that can't be shot through. That gets them to the front side of the zone for now, but still so much more space to open up, which gives them time to work with, just like Josh and Yamzo. They're just trying to look around, scout out where teams are, so when they eventually peek out of this box and try to make that rotation, because they have no shockwaves or grapples, they need to be perfect.
And they have to burn through a lot of their material with every step of the way. Some of these other duos able to preserve a little bit of their match just because of the overdrive grenades, but there's another risk that's involved when you use these overdrive grenades, knowing that the cube rifle is in the lobby. You're a bit exposed if a team is on height, trying to lay down some suppressive measures here. Virgo gonna be lit up from a cube rifle tag. His Bolts, Acorn way overhead. Doesn't seem like anyone has spotted them out just yet, but JoJo and Eoxy from the low ground causing problems right now for Jason Liam. They haven't found the elimination that they're searching for. Clicks, different story entirely though. He's taking out Chimp.
Yeah, that's a big elimination for them, a refresh that they need to get back into this game, and immediately you see what the plan is. Shockwave, or the launch pad with that fizz, so that way they can get over all these other teams that are going to try to break in the box. And you see after game number 1, where you saw maybe 2-3 teams use that as a play, 4 or 5 are now going up in this game, causing a little commotion to Peterbot and Poyo's high ground, but the same thing on these mid layers for Cold and Rapid, but they handle the pressure quickly. They not only get that elimination, but clean it up, giving them some time to work with. Peterbot and Poyo using the advantage that they have of those cube rifles to try to get some damage on teams that are slowly but surely floating in.
That was a really nice chop too by Poyo onto Lawrence, and he even got the
How
full
much
100
people
tag. The great pump, but
Dang.
now it's all about breaking up these builds underneath. Cube rifle
Yep.
still administering a lot of pain,
It's
a lot
so
of
dumb.
problems. Yamzo, unfortunately, he'll have to go this one alone from here on out. Doesn't have Josh by his side. Just looking to keep the placement points intact, but Bolts, Acorn, they managed to strike first onto Clicks. And that's going to be a big setback here for Higgs now. So he'll be left to sort out the affairs as a solo. Bolts and Acorn, on the other hand, more than happy to just claim as much space as they can.
Yeah, you can see them sharing the heals. They know that this one is not going to get easier as this game progresses. Craze goes down. Cold ends up in a 2v1 against King and Craze. He takes them both out with ease. Quickly shockwaves to the front. Knows Rapid has his back. They're just trying to make the strength in the duo matter. Aoxy's down. JoJo's by himself. He doesn't have that same vote of confidence, but he gets sprayed down below out of that dangerous layer. A blessing in disguise for him. Higgs may not have that same luck, though. A whole team trying to bulldoze their way into that box on the other side, but the zone is pushing them further and further away.
It all depends on whether or not Peterbot and Pollo actually make their presence known. Some of these teams trying to play that front side low. Veer gonna be in Peterbot's sights, but he's just gonna keep tarping overhead instead. Bolts, Acorn, another one.
Didn't matter.
But
So
they still
fucking
have so
dumb.
many problems to try and overcome here, getting a little bit caught up behind some of these pre-existing builds, just trying to make their way towards that front side of zone, but it is not easy by any degree. Rapid and Cold also looking to be the cutoff point potentially. They're also playing from that backside of zone. Muzz directly underneath, ultimate low. Cold to slide forward, but just bit off a little bit more than he could chew with that one. That'll be Cold and Rapid fully taken out. Peterbot and Pollo now looking to rack up the numbers here for eliminations.
Yeah, they have the high ground, but they don't really have the builds. Anybody that has material down below might be able to contest him, but he has an opportunity on the down body on the Muzz. Goes for it, but it is going to be bait. Peterbot goes down, but a nice explosive effort here coming out from Pollo. Cube rifle is king. Pollo trying to make a play, gets at least one elimination on his Sphinx, but not enough to get the back-to-back. Acorn and
so fucking OP.
That's why you can never factor out Acorn and Bolts when it comes to any sort of competitive environment here, Jaco. That was a big bounce back game for them after how the first lobby sorted itself out, and I'm sure they'll be feeling very nicely about their position on the leaderboard, sure to jump them up quite a few places.
Yeah, after barely missing out on that spot by 1 point in qualifier 1, they came for redemption, Zeke.
Oh, baby, I cannot. But dude, they took that personally, didn't they, Jacob? They took that junk personally. They said, look, hold on, 1 point off of qualifier. You know what, Kelly? Maybe we come back stronger. Maybe we make sure Peterbot and Pollo, you thought they're going to win. No, sit down, friends. We're going to take a victory royale, especially in such a chaotic end game there. Oh, wow. That was crazy. That was crazy.
I mean, Zeke, you want to talk about taking it personally? Going from 20th place, last place after game number 1, to getting the victory royale in game number 2, I would say that's taking it personally. Acorn and Bolts showing that they are not done just yet. They just had, you know, an off game number 1. We know that they were going to be contested, so looks like they made some adjustments, Vivid, and looks like those adjustments paid out tenfold.
Yeah, super cool to see here. We're kind of seeing these lobbies unfold in such a way where, you know, you have the higher ground team applying all this pressure, but whoever seemingly can find themselves on that lower ground, similar to how Acorn and Bolts were that game, is going to be in such a good position. You gotta think about it. All of the pressure is being applied to all of the teams that are above you if you are on that low ground, right? Because that cube rifle cannot reach you if you and the rest of the lobby separate yourselves and that team up on the high ground. Acorn and Bolts taking over the low ground right here in game number 2, and they're definitely going to be soaring up the leaderboard after this performance.
So well executed by the duo. Oh my gosh, even just getting to see this back, like, I love that opportunity, because right, we're in the game, we're bouncing back and forth between all these players, but kind of getting them to see how they kind of made it to that point. And I think didn't at one point they even drop their cube rifle?
Yeah, they both had one, dropped it, man. Yeah, decisions were made. Hey, but it worked out. You know what I mean? Didn't want the cube rifle because he realized they were going to be playing low ground. Wanted something that, you know, he could apply some pressure, but get into the box and feel confident in it. So, hey, worked out for them. They won the game.
Crazy stuff. Crazy stuff. That's just game number 2. We have 6 more to go before we call it goodbye for the day. First, a quick break. When we return, we see how high Acorn and Bolts climbed that leaderboard. So, we'll see you right after this.
Teammates have